Night Trap was one of the games that changed the landscape of gaming forever. There is no other way to look at that game. Sure, it was goofy and not scary in the slightest. Right timing that time. Kick him in the dick!
Way to go, Control. I knew you could do it.
When in doubt, kick in the dick. But it left its mark, and at the time they were talking about its realistic violence. And since then, we have had so many amazing FMV games or FMV sequences in games. I do get a small kick out of watching people younger playing a game like the first Alan Wake and being blown away that they were using actual video footage inside of the game. That's not meant to be mean or sarcastic. I enjoy seeing people rediscover this whole type of game and experiencing it for the first time, if they somehow manage to not see the Angry Video Game Nerd episode on Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. I'm Adam the Horror Historian, and this time we're talking about something I never thought we would discuss, and that is my favorite FMV horror game. FMV, or full motion video games, are a little older than we give them credit for. Most think of the boom of them in the 90s, though they weren't the first. My first real experience with FMV games would be Night Trap, like most other people. Never really played these type of games as a kid, so it was a whole new experience for me, and I feel like most people ended up experiencing games like this from this era. I've learned a lot about these kind of games while slowly dipping my toes into the water and learned that there are several different types of FMV games. The first one is the one most people have experienced if they are newer to gaming, and that is a video being part of the cutscenes like Alan Wake or Control. The video is not part of the actual gameplay.
Let this happen. You can't 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 let...
According to some people, the next type is the proper FMV games like Night Trap and Surfshark, I guess. I've only played one of those, so I can't really say much on it, but there is some game mechanics layered on top of the video making it feel like a game. With Night Trap, bouncing around different cameras in order to see all the things you needed to, while activating traps made it have a bit of a strategy, even if it was just memorizing what room to be in and when. The last type is the one we're going to focus on for the game I want to talk about, and that is the interactive movie. Sure, you get to make some choices or interact with something to push the story forward, but over the majority of the game you're sitting and watching the events unfold. Erica is 100% in this category, which is not something I usually enjoy in games, but this one just hit a little bit different. I got this game through Limited Run. I have ordered a few games from there in the past, though I checked my accounts and I never ordered this one, so I have no idea why I ended up getting it. When I ordered my copies of No More Heroes, I found that inside of the Switch case there was a fairly cool booklet. But with Erica, we see there really wasn't any reason to print this. I'm sure it was because No More Heroes was made back when having a booklet was still common. One thing you really can't critique in this game is the graphics, because there isn't any traditional graphics. There's some minor UI overlays, mostly giving the player prompts on what they're supposed to be doing or if a decision needs to be made. The rest is all shot footage. This is indeed an interactive movie, so what will either make or break the game is the footage used to tell the story. The best way to go about talking about this game is really to get the game bits out of the way because it's the least impactful element of the whole production. When the game was released, you had two options for controlling the game. I used the PlayStation 4 gamepad and found little to no issues with performing the directions needed to play. Now, there was another option, to use your phone, but I hear it takes an awful lot of battery use, and from what I've read recently, it doesn't work at all with the PS5 and may no longer be working in its entirety, which is a bit of a bummer because I never got to try it. The game is about a full-length feature film. A single run through the game will take roughly 2 hours to finish, but in order to see everything, you have to play multiple times. Frankly, the game has been written and directed quite well. Jamie Magnus Stone was in the director's chair for this one. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you may recognize the name because he worked on the show for 8 episodes. Connor Potts, Faye Windsor-Smith, Jack Arridge all worked on writing for the game, and combined efforts of all these names mentioned, they put together a game that felt more like an actual film than previous FMV games. There's a lot of things that can be said about the footage used in the game. The settings are gorgeous, the FX work is slightly cheesy in some spots, but it's very well done, as well as the everyday makeup looked amazing. The direction, the acting, and the cinematography is more than passable, and there's even some real shining spots. When the player makes a choice that interacts with the environment, they sometimes use stop motion animation, and it gives this off eerie feeling, something that isn't really used in games much these days. The last time I got really excited for a stop motion game was The Neverhood, and now you know just how old I am and feel. The acting by Holly Earl as the main character Erica is very well done. She even has a part in the recently released Dragon's Dogma 2, but she wasn't the only one to put in a stellar performance. Chelsea Edge, who played Toby for one of the other people in the Delphi house, Terrence Mannard, who played Lucien Flowers, the man who ran said house, and Duncan Casey, who played Sergeant Duncan Blake, all put in stellar performances and were characters that stand out long after I finished the game. Sure, there were some weaker performances in there, but overall the world created felt solid. So what actually happens in this interactive movie? Well, Erica has a really rough go of it. She's constantly having nightmares to when her father was murdered. An incident happens where she's living and she ends up having to go to a place called the Delphi House, which I previously mentioned, and this is where a majority of the game takes place. The house is supposed to be a place to help people with different forms of mental illness, as well as several other conditions that would impact their ability to live on their own at the time. Erica's father, along with Lucien, were the men responsible for setting up Delphi, and her mother was one of the attending nurses. We spend the time in the game learning about why Erica's father was murdered, the origins of the Delphi house, and the mysteries surrounding everything. Going too much more into this would actually contain a lot of spoilers, and for a game like this that is so new, I don't want to ruin too much of it. Even hinting or doing a spoiler section could really ruin the experience, and this is one I think is truly worth experiencing for yourself. Erica is one of the best interactive movies to come out in a long time that's also full FMV. We've seen some others, like Detroit Become Human or Heavy Rain for example, but as much as those games were very game forward, this one is very movie and story forward.
Jesus is hideous.